The rain-slicked streets of Seattle gleamed under the relentless gray sky, but inside Elena Harper's glass-walled condo overlooking Puget Sound, the storm felt closer, heavier, like it had seeped into the bones of everyone gathered there. Elena stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, her arms crossed tight over her chest, the faint scent of her chamomile tea gone cold in the mug she clutched like a lifeline. At 42, she was the picture of composed strength, an architect whose designs etched sharp lines into the city's skyline. But right now, her green eyes, shadowed by sleepless nights, fixed on the small crowd in her living room, all of them whispering condolences that tasted like ash. Riley Thompson burst through the door then, soaked to the skin, her chestnut curls plastered to her freckled cheeks, a duffel bag slung over one shoulder like it held the weight of her entire unraveling world. 24 years old, fresh out of art school in Portland with dreams of galleries that now seemed as distant as the stars, Riley had driven through the night after the call, the one that shattered everything. Her parents, Elena's sister and brother-in-law, gone in a freak highway pileup just south of Olympia. Skid marks on black ice, a semi-truck that didn't brake in time. The details clawed at her, but she shoved them down, her hazel eyes scanning the room until they locked on Elena. Aunt Elena. The one who'd always sent birthday cards with sketches of fantastical buildings. The one who'd visited during holidays with stories of blueprints and late-night site visits that made Riley's artist heart ache with envy for that kind of creation. Now Elena turned and the air between them thickened, charged with something unspoken. A pull Riley couldn't name but felt in the sudden hitch of her breath. Elena crossed the room in 3 strides, her tailored slacks whispering against the hardwood, and pulled Riley into a hug that smelled of wool and faint lavender soap. "Oh, kiddo," Elena murmured, her voice cracking like thunder rolling in from the sound, low and ragged. Riley buried her face in Elena's shoulder, the fabric dampening under her tears, and for a moment, the world narrowed to the steady thump of Elena's heart against her ear, a rhythm that drowned out the rain pattering against the glass. The funeral was a blur 2 days later. Black umbrellas blooming like funeral flowers under the drizzle, the minister's words washing over them like white noise. Riley sat in the front pew of the old Episcopal church in Capitol Hill, her fingers twisting the hem of her black dress, the silk cool and foreign against her skin. Elena sat beside her, close enough that their knees brushed, an accidental graze that sent a shiver up Riley's spine, unbidden and sharp. She glanced sideways, catching the way Elena's jaw clenched, her silver-streaked auburn hair catching the dim light from the stained glass windows, painting her face in fractured blues and reds. Elena's hand found Riley's then, squeezing once, firm and grounding, but Riley's pulse raced under that touch, a warmth spreading that had nothing to do with grief. Back at the condo that evening, the space felt too vast, echoing with the ghosts of laughter that would never come again. Riley wandered the halls, her bare feet silent on the heated floors, trailing fingers along the exposed brick walls Elena had chosen for their raw texture. She ended up in Elena's study, a sanctuary of drafting tables and half-finished sketches, the air thick with the earthy tang of graphite and aged paper. A photo on the desk caught her eye. Elena's sister, Riley's mom, grinning with a toddler Riley on her hip, Elena in the background, all sharp elbows and knowing smiles at 20-something. Riley's throat tightened, a sob building, but she swallowed it, tracing the frame's edge until footsteps approached. "Can't sleep." Elena's voice was soft, laced with the huskiness of exhaustion, as she leaned in the doorway, arms folded, her silk blouse unbuttoned just enough to reveal the hollow of her throat. Riley shook her head, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "It's all too quiet, like the world's holding its breath." She turned and there was Elena, closer now, the lamplight casting shadows that softened the lines around her eyes, made her look vulnerable in a way that twisted something deep in Riley's chest. Elena stepped forward, hesitating at the desk, her fingers brushing Riley's as she picked up the photo. She'd hate this fuss. Always said funerals were for the living, not the dead. A pause, heavy, then Elena set the frame down, her gaze lifting to meet Riley's, holding it with an intensity that made the room spin. "You're staying here, right? As long as you need. This place. It's yours too." Riley nodded, but the words stuck, her skin prickling under Elena's stare. There was a current there, electric and forbidden, humming in the space between them. She wanted to lean in to chase that warmth, but the taboo of it, the blood tie, clamped down like a vice. Instead, she forced a smile, brittle. "Thanks, Aunt Elena. I don't know what I'd do without you." That night, Riley lay in the guest room, the sheets crisp and smelling of fresh laundry, but sleep evaded her. The clock on the nightstand ticked like a heartbeat, each second amplifying the ache. Down the hall she heard Elena moving, the creak of floorboards, the soft sigh that escaped through the walls, raw and lonely. Riley's hand slipped under her pillow, fingers curling into a fist, fighting the image of Elena's face, the way her lips had parted in that hug, the unintended press of bodies that lingered like a brand. Weeks blurred into a fragile routine. Elena returned to her firm downtown, drafting sustainable high-rises that kissed the clouds, while Riley set up an easel in the sunroom, her paint spilling color across canvases that captured the storm-tossed waters outside. Mornings started with coffee in the kitchen, the hiss of the espresso machine a comforting ritual, steam curling up like secrets. Elena would slide a mug across the island, their fingers brushing. "Always accidental, always electric. Black, 2 sugars?" Elena would ask, her voice a low rumble that vibrated through Riley's chest. "Yeah," Riley replied one morning, her laugh forced, light. But as Elena turned to rinse her cup, Riley's eyes traced the curve of her neck, the way her hair fell loose, and guilt flooded in, hot and shameful. She was grieving, that's all. Clinging to the one steady thing left. But the dream started then. Feverish flashes of Elena's hands on her skin, whispers in the dark that blurred the line between comfort and craving. One evening, after a long day where the sky finally cracked open with sun, they walked the waterfront together, the salt air sharp on their tongues, gulls crying overhead like accusations. Riley's hand swung close to Elena's, almost touching, and Elena didn't pull away. "You know," Elena said, stopping by a bench overlooking the ferry's cutting white wakes, "your mom always said you had her fire. That spark. Don't let this dim it." Riley looked up, the wind whipping her curls, and saw it, the flicker in Elena's eyes mirroring her own turmoil. "What if it's already flickering out?" she whispered, voice breaking on the edge of the pier. Elena's hand rose, hovering, then settled on Riley's shoulder, thumb tracing a slow circle that burned through her jacket. "Then we'll fan it back. Together." The words hung laden, and in that moment, with the sun dipping low, painting the sound in liquid gold, Riley felt the bond shift, cracking open into something deeper, more dangerous. A forbidden thread pulling taut. The first real fracture came at a family dinner, Elena's brother hosting in his sprawling Bellevue home, the table groaning under pot roast and mashed potatoes that no one tasted. Aunts and uncles circled like wary birds, their condolences laced with prying eyes on Riley, the orphan now. "How are you holding up, sweetie?" one asked, patting her hand too long. "Fine," Riley murmured, but her fork scraped the plate, the clink echoing her nerves. Elena sat across, her foot accidentally nudging Riley's under the table, a jolt that made her spill her wine, red blooming like a wound on the white cloth. Laughter rippled, awkward, but Elena's gaze met hers over the rim of her glass, dark with something unspoken. Later, in the powder room, Riley splashed water on her face, the cool drip down her neck doing nothing to quell the heat. The door opened and Elena slipped in, locking it behind her. "You okay?" she asked, voice hushed, stepping too close in the cramped space. Riley nodded, but her breath caught as Elena reached past her for a towel, their bodies brushing, hip to hip, the faint scent of Elena's perfume, sandalwood and citrus, enveloping her. Time stretched, the mirror fogging slightly from their warmth, and Riley turned, mouths inches apart. "Elena, the name slipped out, not Aunt, just Elena, and the air ignited. Elena's eyes widened, a sharp inhale, her hand lifting to cup Riley's jaw, thumb grazing her lower lip. The touch was fire, pure and consuming, but Elena pulled back, exhaling a ragged breath that ghosted Riley's skin. "We can't. God, Riley, we can't." The words were a plea, torn from her, and she fled the room, leaving Riley trembling, the mirror reflecting a girl on the brink of ruin. That night, back in the condo, the silence roared. Riley paced her room, the floor cool under her feet, the distant hum of traffic a mocking lullaby. She heard Elena in the kitchen, glass clinking, the glug of wine pouring. Unable to stop herself, Riley padded down the hall, pausing in the doorway. Elena stood at the counter, back turned, shoulders slumped, a half-empty bottle between them. "I didn't mean to," Riley started, but Elena whirled, eyes glassy. "Don't," Elena cut in, voice raw, stepping forward until they were toe-to-toe. Whatever this is, it's wrong. You're my niece. Blood." But her hand betrayed her, fingers tangling in Riley's curls, pulling her closer even as her lips formed the denial. Riley's heart thundered. The scent of Merlot on Elena's breath mixing with the rain-fresh air from the open window. "Then why does it feel like the only thing that's real?" she whispered, rising on her toes, their foreheads touching, breaths mingling in the charged space. Elena's resolve cracked then, a soft groan escaping as her lips brushed Riley's. Not a kiss, not yet, but a graze that promised everything. They sprang apart at the sound of the neighbor's door slamming, reality crashing back like waves on the rocks below. Elena turned away, gripping the counter, knuckles white. "Go to bed, Riley. Please." Riley retreated, chest heaving, the ghost of that touch searing her skin. In her room she collapsed onto the bed, tears hot on her cheeks, the first threads of undeniable love weaving through the grief, binding them in a knot that would only tighten. Autumn deepened in Seattle, leaves turning the parks into bonfires of red and gold. But inside Elena's world, the colors bled into shades of torment. She threw herself into work, blueprints sprawling across her desk like maps to escape, the hum of the drafting software a white noise against the constant replay in her mind. That almost kiss, the velvet give of Riley's lip under her thumb, the way her own body had betrayed her with a hunger she'd buried decades ago. At 42, Elena had built a life of precise angles and unyielding steel. Divorced 5 years from a man whose touch had always felt like obligation. Her queerness a quiet undercurrent she'd explored in fleeting college flings, never letting it disrupt the family facade. But Riley was chaos in human form. A whirlwind of paint and passion that upended everything. Mornings grew strained, the kitchen island a battlefield of averted eyes and clipped words. Elena poured coffee with mechanical precision, the steam rising like barriers between them. "Board meeting at 9, she'd say, voice even, as if the night before hadn't left bruises on her soul. Riley nodded, stirring her mug absently, her hazel eyes tracing patterns in the foam. But Elena felt the weight of that gaze, heavy as the fog rolling in off the sound. Riley, meanwhile, poured her turmoil onto canvas, bold strokes of crimson and indigo capturing the royal inside her, figures entwined in shadows that echoed their forbidden dance. Art school had taught her to chase the raw edge, but this was a precipice. She texted friends back in Portland, vague updates about figuring shit out, but the truth burned. She was falling hard and irreversible, for the woman who'd raised a hand to her mother's wedding, who'd sent care packages during finals week. Aunt Elena. The label chafed now, a lie wrapped in silk. One crisp Saturday, Elena suggested a drive to clear the air, up to the Olympic Peninsula, where the rainforest swallowed secrets whole. Riley agreed, desperate for motion, anything to outrun the tension coiling tighter each day. They piled into Elena's old Subaru, the engine rumbling to life with a throaty purr, tires crunching over fallen leaves as they crossed the floating bridge, Lake Washington glittering below like shattered glass. The road wound through evergreens, the air inside the car thick with pine sap drifting through cracked windows and the faint leather scent of the seats. Radio static gave way to an old Fleetwood Mac track, Stevie Nicks' voice weaving through the speakers like smoke. Riley's foot tapped unconsciously, and Elena glanced over, a ghost of a smile tugging her lips. "You still dance to this? Like at that family barbecue when you were, 15? Spinning in the grass till you fell." Riley laughed, a real one this time, sharp and bright, cutting through the haze. "Yeah, and you joined in, all stiff at first, then loosening up like you've been holding your breath forever." The memory hung warm but laced with the undercurrent, the way Elena's hands had steadied her then, innocent, now replayed in fevered dreams. They hiked the trail to Solduc Falls that afternoon, Mist rising from the cascade like breath, the roar drowning out unspoken words. Riley slipped on wet moss, her ankle twisting with a gasp, and Elena was there in an instant, arms wrapping around her waist, pulling her upright. "Easy," Elena breathed, close enough that Riley felt the rapid flutter of her pulse against her side. They froze like that, the water thundering approval, Elena's hands lingering on Riley's hips, thumbs pressing into the denim, grounding and igniting all at once. "Sorry," Riley murmured, but she didn't pull away, leaning into the hold, the chill of the spray forgotten in the heat blooming between them. Elena's exhale was a shudder, warm against Riley's ear. "Don't be." The words were gravel-loaded, and for a heartbeat, the world narrowed to the press of bodies, the slick rocks underfoot, the forbidden thrill of it all. Then Elena stepped back, offering a hand up the path, her palm callous from years of wielding tools, enveloping Riley's with a grip that said everything her voice couldn't. Back at the car, as dusk painted the sky in bruised purples, Riley broke the silence. "Why'd you never marry again? After Uncle Mark?" The question slipped out, bold, probing the scar tissue. Elena gripped the wheel tighter, the leather creaking. "Didn't find the right fit. Or maybe I never looked in the right places." A pause, the wipers swiping rhythmically against a sudden drizzle. "Life's full of angles that don't line up, Riley. You learn to build around them." Riley turned, studying the profile, strong jaw, the faint lines etched by sun and stress. "What if you don't want to build around? What if you want to crash right through?" Elena's laugh was bitter, short. "Then you end up with ruins." But her eyes flicked to Riley's, holding, and the car filled with the unsaid. The crash was already in motion. That night, in a roadside motel because the pass had flooded, the room was a necessity. 2 queen beds, thin walls echoing the storm outside. Elena showered first, emerging in a towel, water beading on her collarbone, and Riley looked away too late, the sight searing into her retinas. "Your turn," Elena said, voice steady, but her cheeks flushed as she slid under the covers, the mattress dipping under her weight. Riley lingered in the bathroom, steam clouding the mirror, her reflection blurred like her resolve. The water scalded her skin, a penance, but it did nothing to wash away the ache. When she emerged, wrapped in a robe too big, Elena was reading by lamplight, glasses perched on her nose, the pose achingly domestic. "Couldn't sleep?" Elena asked, setting the book aside, her voice a low timbre that vibrated through the dim space. Riley shook her head, perching on the edge of her bed, knees drawn up. "Storms always make me restless." Thunder rumbled then, punctuating, and lightning flashed, illuminating Elena's face in stark relief, vulnerable, yearning. "Come here," Elena said, almost a whisper, patting the space beside her. "Like when you were little. After nightmares." Riley hesitated, the invitation a siren's call, but crossed the gap, sliding under the covers. The bed smelled of Elena, lavender and clean cotton, and Riley curled on her side, facing her, inches apart. "Not so little anymore," she murmured, the air between them humming. Elena's hand found her hair, fingers combing through the damp strands, a soothing rhythm that lulled and aroused in equal measure. "No, you're not." The admission hung, heavy, and Riley shifted closer, her leg brushing Elena's under the sheets, a spark jumping the gap. The storm peaked, rain lashing the window like accusations, but inside time slowed. Elena's touch faltered, then deepened, her palm cupping Riley's cheek, thumb tracing the curve of her jaw. "This is dangerous," Elena breathed, eyes dark pools reflecting the flashes outside. "Then let's be dangerous," Riley replied, voice trembling, and closed the distance. Their lips met, soft at first, tentative, a question. Elena's sigh was a fracture, deep and needy as she pulled Riley closer, the kiss igniting like dry tinder. Hands roamed, Elena's in Riley's hair, Riley's on the warm plane of Elena's back, tasting salt and storm, the forbidden fruit ripening under desperate mouths. They broke apart, gasping, foreheads pressed, the world outside forgotten. "We shouldn't," Elena whispered, even as her fingers traced Riley's spine. "But we are," Riley countered, heart pounding a war drum. They tangled then, bodies fitting like puzzle pieces long separated. Whispers and gasps swallowed by thunder. It was messy, fervent. Teeth nipping collarbones, nails digging into hips, the creak of the bed a counterpoint to their moans. Elena's name spilled from Riley's lips like a prayer, and Elena shattered with a cry muffled against Riley's neck, waves crashing over them both. After they lay spent, limbs entwined, the storm easing to a patter. Elena's fingers traced lazy circles on Riley's stomach, a silent vow. "What now?" she murmured, voice raw. Riley turned, kissing the corner of her mouth. "Now we figure it out. Together." But even in the afterglow doubt flickered, the family, the world waiting to judge. Sleep came fitful, dreams laced with ruins. Morning brought clarity's cruel edge. Over diner coffee in Port Angeles, mugs steaming between them, Elena's walls rebuilt brick by brick. "Last night. It can't happen again." Her voice was steel but her eyes pleaded. Riley's cup clattered, coffee sloshing. "You don't mean that." The hurt was a knife twisting. "I have to." Elena reached across, squeezing her hand once, then letting go. "For us. To survive this." The drive home was silence, broken only by the engine's growl, the distance between them a chasm widening with each mile. Riley stared out at the blurring pines, tears blurring them further. The love they'd tasted now a ghost, haunting every breath. Back in the city, the condo felt like a cage. Riley locked herself in the sunroom, paints flying in a frenzy, blacks and grays swallowing the light, a storm on canvas. Elena buried in meetings, but her sketches faltered, lines bleeding into chaos. Weeks passed in this limbo, touches avoided, glances loaded with loss. Until Thanksgiving loomed, family descending like a tide, forcing proximity. The dinner at Elena's brother's was a minefield. Turkey carved with precision, wine flowing too freely. Riley sat across from cousins she barely knew, laughter grating, while Elena's foot found hers under the table, a secret Morse code of longing. After pie in the garden under string lights, away from prying eyes, Riley cornered her. "Stop pretending. It's killing us." Elena's face crumpled, the lights casting halos. "I'm trying to protect you. This bond, it's everything, but it's poison too." She stepped closer, breath mingling in the chill air. "I love you, Riley. God help me more than I should." The confession hung, a lifeline, and Riley surged forward, kissing her fierce under the autumn stars, hands fisting in Elena's sweater. Elena yielded, a moan escaping but pulled back, eyes wild. "Not here. Not like this." They drove home in taut silence, the city lights streaking like tears. At the door, Elena fumbled the key, and once inside they collided. Coats shed in a trail, bodies pressing against walls, the forbidden dam breaking anew. In the bedroom, moonlight slanting through blinds, they explored slower this time, reverent. Kisses trailing down spines, whispers of names like incantations. Elena's hands mapped Riley's curves, learning the language of gasps and arches, while Riley worshipped the strength in Elena's thighs, the salt of her skin. Dawn found them curled together, breath synced, but reality intruded with a phone buzz. Elena's brother, inviting them for coffee, oblivious. Elena tensed, the weight settling. "We tell them, or we don't survive." Riley nodded, fear and fire mingling. "Together." But the telling came harder than imagined, words sticking like thorns. Winter clamped down on Seattle like a vice, the holidays twinkling with false cheer. Strings of lights looping the condo's balcony, evergreen boughs scenting the air with sharp resin. Elena and Riley navigated their secret in stolen moments. A brush of fingers over breakfast, eyes locking across crowded rooms at holiday parties, nights where the bed became a sanctuary of size and skin. But the high wore thin, eroded by the constant vigilance, the lies stacking like snowdrifts. Elena's firm holiday mixer at a sleek Belltown lounge was the spark. Colleagues toasting sustainable designs, jazz humming low, the clink of glasses a deceptive melody. Riley tagged along, uninvited but insisted upon, her black dress hugging curves that drew Elena's gaze like magnets, even as she mingled with clients. "You look incredible." Elena whispered during a lull, her hand grazing Riley's lower back, hidden by the crowd, sending sparks up her spine. Riley leaned in, lips brushing Elena's ear amid the din. Careful, or I'll drag you to the coat room. The flirtation was a bomb, but under it pulsed the strain, the way Elena's brother eyed them curiously over eggnog at family brunch the week before, asking if Riley had a special someone, yet the room's laughter ablaze. That night, after too much champagne, they tumbled into the condo, laughter bubbling as Elena kicked off heels, the door clicking shut like a seal. Riley pinned her against the wall, kisses hungry, hands roaming under wool skirts, the taste of fizz and desire on their tongues. Missed this, Riley gasped, nipping Elena's neck, eliciting a low moan that echoed off the brick. Elena's fingers tangled in Riley's curls, pulling her closer. Every second, they migrated to the rug by the fireplace, flames crackling, casting golden flickers over bare skin. It was languid this time, exploratory, Elena's tongue tracing constellations on Riley's breasts, Riley's nails raking down Elena's back in retaliation, their bodies a symphony of gasps and the wet slide of flesh. Climax built slow, shattering in waves that left them trembling. Curled in the after warmth, the fires popped, the only sound. But dawn brought the hangover of alcohol and reality. Elena rose first, padding to the kitchen in a robe, the coffee maker gurgling like regret. Riley joined her, wrapping arms around her waist from behind, chin on shoulder. Last night was. She trailed off, nuzzling the crook of Elena's neck. Perfect, Elena finished, but her voice hitched, turning in the embrace to cup Riley's face. And terrifying. My brother called while you slept. Wants us over for New Year's. The whole family. Riley's stomach nodded, the warmth fleeing. So? We go. Act normal. Elena's eyes darkened, thumb stroking Riley's cheekbone. Normal's cracking, love. One slip, one look too long, and it's over. The endearment slipped out, soft, but it landed heavy. The first fracture in their private world. The days to New Year's blurred in a frenzy, Elena's deadlines piling like drifts. Riley's first gallery submission rejected with a polite email that stung like frostbite. Tension simmered, erupting one evening over takeout Thai. The spice burning their tongues as words flew. You're pulling away, Riley accused, chopsticks clattering to the plate, her eyes flashing. Elena set her fork down, deliberate. I'm protecting us. This city, our family, they'd crucify us. The word hung, biblical in its weight, and Riley recoiled as if struck. Us? Or just you? Riley's voice broke, standing abruptly, chair scraping. I'm not a kid you can shield forever. I want this, all of it. Not shadows. Elena rose too, rounding the table, but Riley backed away, chest heaving. You think I don't? Every night I fight it, the want, the fear. But your family, Riley. My niece. That word. It poisons everything. Tears welled, spilling hot, and Elena reached out, but Riley flinched. Then let it poison. Or let it go. The ultimatum echoed, and Riley stormed to the sunroom, slamming the door, paints untouched, the canvases mocking her with half-formed dreams. Elena sank to the floor outside, back to the wood, the barrier thin as their resolve. She heard Riley's muffled sobs, each one a dagger, and pressed her forehead to the door, whispering apologies to the grain. Hours passed, the condo cooling until Riley emerged, eyes red-rimmed, extending a hand. Don't make me choose between loving you and losing you. Elena took it, pulling her down into a hug that smelled of curry and salt tears. Never. They made love on the living room floor then, urgent and forgiving. Bodies slamming together, breaths ragged, erasing the rift with friction and release. But the seed of doubt took root, insidious. New Year's Eve arrived under a rare clear sky, stars pricking the velvet black as they drove to Bellevue, the radio crooning ballads that twisted like knives. The party was in full swing. Fireworks popping distant, champagne flutes chiming, relatives swirling in a haze of perfume and pretense. Riley stuck close to Elena, their roles scripted. Aunt and niece bonded by loss. But the air crackled, every glance a risk. Midnight neared, the countdown building, and Elena's brother pulled her aside in the kitchen, brow furrowed. Everything all right with you two? Riley seems off. And you distracted. Elena's laugh was forced, throat dry. Grief lingers, you know? We're managing. But her eyes sought Riley across the room, laughing with cousins, the sight a punch. As the ball dropped on TV, cheers erupted, and the family air-kissed, hugging in a crush. Elena found Riley in the melee, their embrace lingering a beat too long, bodies flush, hearts sinking to the cheers. Riley's whisper was fire. Happy New Year, Elena. No, aunt. Just the name, a claim. Elena's response was a squeeze hidden, but her brother's voice cut through. Hey, you two, getting chummy. Laughter followed, but his eyes narrowed, suspicion flickering. The drive home was electric, hands clasped over the console, knuckles white. He saw, Elena said, voice tight. Riley squeezed harder. Let him. January brought the storm, literal and not. Gales held off the sound, rattling windows, mirroring the one brewing. Elena's brother cornered her at work, coffee in hand, face stern. What's going on with you and Riley? It's weird. Too close. Elena froze, mug burning her palm. She's family. Grieving. That's all. But the lie tasted foul, and that night, she confessed over dinner, voice trembling. He suspects. We have to cool it. For now. Riley's fork dropped, clanging. Cool it? Like we're a fling. Hurt flared to anger, chair pushing back. I'm all in, Elena. But you're half out the door. The argument escalated, words like hail. Accusations of cowardice, selfishness, until Riley grabbed her coat, storming into the night. I need air. Space. The door slammed, wind howling in her wake. Elena paced, panic rising, the condo empty without her. Minutes stretched to hours, rain sheeting the glass, each thunderclap a fear. At 2 a.m. the door creaked open, Riley dripping, eyes wild. I walked the pier. Thought about jumping just to feel something else. Elena's heart seized, pulling her into a crushing hug, water soaking through. Don't. Ever. They sank to the floor, sobbing together, the storm outside raging. I love you, Elena choked out. Fully. Stupidly. But the world's not kind to this. Riley clung tighter. Then we make it kind. Or we burn it down. February thawed the ice slightly. A tentative gallery show for Riley in Pioneer Square. Her pieces hung under spotlights, abstracts of longing that drew murmurs. Elena attended, proud in a corner, eyes tracing the curves of paint that echoed Riley's form. After, in a dim bar, they celebrated with gin and tonics, the buzz loosening tongues. You're brilliant, Elena said, fingers interlacing under the table, the wood scarred from years of stories. Riley's smile was wicked, leaning in. Show me later? The promise hummed, and they barely made it home, stripping in the elevator, laughter muffled against skin. But March cracked open the facade. An anonymous email to Elena's firm. Grainy photos from the holiday party. The hug frozen in time, captioned family ties. Panic surged. It traced back to a cousin, whispers turning to outright questions at the next family lunch. Elena's brother confronted outright. Is there something I should know? It's unnatural. The word landed like a slap, and Elena defended, voice steel. Mind your own. But inside she shattered, driving home white-knuckled. Riley waited, sensing the fracture. What happened? Elena collapsed into her arms, the dam breaking. They know. Or they think. It's over, our jobs, our lives. Sobs racked her raw, and Riley held her through the night, rocking like a child, the love a fierce anchor in the tempest. Spring hinted at renewal, cherry blossoms dusting the streets pink, but their world narrowed to survival. They attended counseling in secret, a queer therapist in Capitol Hill affirming the mess. Love doesn't check blood types. It helped, stitching wounds, but the external pressure mounted. Family ultimatums, Elena's firm eyeing her warily. One balmy April evening on the balcony overlooking the Sound, fairies blinking like fireflies, Riley turned to Elena, wine glass in hand. Run with me. To Portland or anywhere. Start fresh. Elena's heart ached, The proposal a dream laced with thorns. And leave everything? Our homes are art. Riley's eyes burned. Leave the poison. Keep us. The debate raged through May. Pros and cons listed on napkins, dreams voiced in the dark. Elena's designs won an award, a high-rise groundbreaking, but the speech stuck in her throat, accolades hollow without Riley's hand in hers publicly. Riley's second submission landed a solo show, but the joy soured under the secrecy. June's solstice sun baked the city, and they decided Portland a fresh canvas. Packing became ritual. Boxes labeled with inside jokes, laughs amid tears. But the night before departure, Elena's brother showed up unannounced, face etched with betrayal. Don't do this. It's wrong. She's your niece. Elena stood firm, Riley at her side, hand clasped openly. Love isn't wrong. Hiding it is. The door closed on his protests, a final cut. As they loaded the car at dawn, Seattle waking slow, Elena paused, pulling Riley close. Ready. Riley kissed her deep and sure. Born ready. The engine purred to life, tires humming southbound, the rear view shrinking the skyline. A chapter closing on chains. Portland welcomed them with a drizzle that felt like benediction. The Willamette River curving lazy under bridges strung with lights. The city's vibe a softer echo of Seattle's edge. Hip galleries in the Pearl District, food carts steaming with possibilities. They rented a loft in the Alberta Arts District, exposed beams and skylights framing their new life. The air humming with the faint buzz of street musicians below. Unpacking was foreplay. Elena hanging blueprints beside Riley's canvases, their hands brushing over frames, sparking kisses that led to rugs strewn with clothes, bodies rediscovering in daylight slanting gold. Elena's remote work for the Seattle firm held. Video calls crisp but distant, her designs now infused with curves, organic flows inspired by Riley's abstracts, earning praise she shared over rooftop dinners, city sprawl twinkling below. They love the human element, she'd say, quoting emails, her foot hooking Riley's under the bistro table. Riley dove into the local scene, her solo show at a Hawthorne boutique drawing crowds. Viewers lingering over pieces titled Bloodlines and Unraveled Ties, the colors raw confessions. Sales trickled, enough for freelance murals, her days splashed with street art under overcast skies. The scent of wet concrete mixing with paint thinner. Evenings she'd return paint-flecked, Elena waiting with takeout and wine, pulling her into slow dances in the kitchen to Norah Jones crooning from the speakers, hips swaying, breath sinking. The first months were honeymoon haze, weekends hiking Forest Park, trails thick with ferns and the earthy petrichor after rain, hands clasped openly, no glances over shoulders. They adopted a rescue mutt, a wiry terrier mix named Sage, who bounded between them on walks along the esplanade, leash tangling in joyful chaos. Look at us, Riley laughed one sunset, Sage tugging toward the river's edge, Elena's arm around her waist. Normal. Free. Elena's reply was a kiss to her temple, lingering. Ours. But under the bliss, scars itched, letters from family, terse and unopened, piling in a drawer like ghosts. Her brother's silence was loudest, a void where once was easy banter. Summer swelled, festivals pulsing through the streets, music thumping from waterfront blues, food trucks hawking Marionberry pies that stained fingers purple. They volunteered at a queer youth center, Elena mentoring on sustainable builds, Riley leading art workshops, their stories veiled but inspiring, kids' eyes widening at tales of defying odds. One evening, after a session where a teen confessed her crush on her best friend, Riley pulled Elena aside in the center's garden, fireflies winking. We did that. Gave them hope. Elena's throat tightened, pulling her close amid the lavender beds. You did. My brave girl. The endearment, once taboo now a caress, led to making love under the stars later. On a blanket in their loft, city hum distant, Sage snoring nearby, tender, unhurried, Elena's mouth mapping Riley's scars real and imagined, until release washed them clean. Fall brought the reckoning. An invitation arrived, Elena's sister's memorial anniversary. A gathering back in Seattle, neutral ground at the old family cabin on Whidbey Island. Go! Riley urged over breakfast, pancakes steaming, syrup sticky on plates. Without me. Bridget. Foreclosure. Elena hesitated, forked midway. And leave you? No. But Riley insisted, the distance a test of their roots. The ferry crossing was choppy, salt spray stinging. Elena's stomach churning with more than waves. The cabin loomed, cedar siding weathered, smoke curling from the chimney like unanswered questions. Family milled. Cousins with kids in tow, Elena's brother stiff by the grill, his wife avoiding eyes. Glad you came, he said, handing a beer, grip firm. Missed you. The words thawed something, and over salmon grilled smoky, beer's loosening tongues, he broached it low. Heard you moved. With Riley. No accusation, just fact, eyes searching. Elena's beer paused at her lips, the fizz bitter. Yeah. We're together. The truth out, simple, the air shifting like a held breath released. He nodded slow, poking the fire later, sparks rising. It's a lot. But she's happy. Glowing in photos. If it's real. A trail off, acceptance tentative, but there, a crack in the wall. Elena exhaled, flames warming her face. It's real. The most real thing. They hugged then, awkward but genuine, the first mend. Back in Portland, Riley waited, pacing the loft, Sage at her heels. Elena burst in, scooping her up, spinning till laughter spilled. He knows. And it's okay. Not perfect, but starting. Riley's tears were joy, kissing her fierce. Told you. We burn bright. Winter deepened their bond, holidays their own. A tree trimmed with ornaments handmade. A tiny canvas Riley painted. A blueprint heart Elena folded. They hosted a solstice party for new friends. Queer artists and architects. Laughter echoing off beams. Toasts to found families. In the quiet after, snow dusting the skylight, they made love by candlelight, slow and sacred. Elena's whispers vows. You always. Spring bloomed defiant. Riley's mural commissioned for the center. A cascade of intertwined figures in vibrant hues, symbolizing bonds unbroken. Elena's firm promoted her to partner, crediting her evolved perspective, and they celebrated with a trip to the Oregon coast. Cannon Beach dunes whispering underfoot, Haystack Rock sentinel in the surf. One twilight, waves crashing rhythmic, Elena dropped to one knee in the sand, ring glinting. A simple band etched with their initials, waves frozen in metal. Marry me, Riley Thompson. Build this life, every angle, every curve. Riley's gasp was swallowed by the tide. Tears salting the spray as she pulled Elena up, kissing her deep. Yes. God, yes. They collapsed laughing, rolling in the foam. Sage barking joy from the shore. The ocean applauding their defiance. Years folded forward, wedding small on that same beach. Family selective but present. Elena's brother toasting with a gruff, to love that bends rules. Riley's gallery thrived, shows in San Francisco. Elena's designs greening cities coast to coast. They adopted another dog, mentored kids, grew old in the loft's creaks, hands wrinkled but laced. On their 10th anniversary, back in Seattle for a visit, they stood on that old pier, dawn breaking misty, the maple leaf long dissolved but its echo in a new one drifting by. Elena pulled Riley close, silver hair mingling with gray-streaked curls. Worth every storm. Riley smiled, hazel eyes steady. Every one. Their kiss sealed it. Undeniable, eternal. A bond forged in fire, blooming in light. The world turned, but they stood rooted. Love's quiet revolution complete.